So we will finish this week's hybrid lectures with coverage of a few concepts from the memory, encoding, storage, and retrieval module. Different types of memory, specifically episodic memory was the one that people had asked about, and then retention interval, retroactive interference, and proactive interference. So we've got episodic memory, semantic memory, and then down a little bit more you see autobiographical memory. So those are the three that we want to know about. Semantic memory. Just think of this as basically the store of all the facts that you know, right? So Springfield is the capital of Illinois, um, um, right? All of the knowledge that you have, okay? Episodic memory is the events that have happened to you, right? Just memories of things that happened in your life. What you had for breakfast today, where you parked your car, okay? And then autobiographical memory is also memories of events from your life. So you might think, well, what's the difference between autobiographical memory and episodic memory? Researchers refer to autobiographical memory if they're talking about, basically things that happened to you a long time ago. Okay. Yes, it is also a type of episodic memory. But when I'm asking you questions about it, I'll be clear. Okay. So if I'm asking you about something and I want you to answer that it's episodic memory, I'll say, this morning. What happened to you this morning? What did you have for breakfast today? Or where did you go last night after you left COD? Okay. For autobiographical memory, if I'm trying to get you to answer that, I'll say 10 years ago. What did you do for your 10th birthday party? Okay. So then retroactive interference, proactive interference. Okay. So somebody asked about retention interval. It's really just simply the time that passes from when you first learn something, right? It's when you're first trying to remember it, and then when we ask you to recall it later. And they note that, hey, sometimes memories can consolidate during that time. That just means that memories can actually get stronger, that you can get, right? But generally, or often, what happens is something sort of gets in the way during that retention interval, during that time between when you learn it and you have to recall it. And there are two specific types of interference that can take place that will make it harder for you to remember. They correspond to retroactive interference and proactive interference. And I want you to notice that proactive interference actually is a key term too. Okay, it is a vocabulary word. I think they just forgot to put it in that different font color that has the pop-up definition. Okay, so I would want you to be able to keep track of the difference between retroactive and proactive interference. It's kind of hard to memorize, and so I do have the trick that I use to try and remember, and it's based on self-references. Okay. In one type, retroactive interference or proactive interference, we've got later information that interferes with earlier information. In the other, we have earlier information interferes with later information. When I start describing examples, you will probably recognize yourself in one of them more. That's the one you can remember. Right? So for me, it's retroactive interference. I have a huge problem with retroactive interference. I find it really very, very frustrating and actually kind of embarrassing. Right? Retroactive interference is when later information interferes with information you have already learned. Works like this. Every semester, I learn all of my students' names. Okay. Now, I know this semester I've made very little progress, but I will. By the end of the semester, I will know all of you. Okay? And then the next semester comes along, and I have a whole new set of students to learn, and I find that I forget the names of students that I have previously learned. And so I'll see somebody in the hall. They were in my class last semester, and when I'm trying to learn my new students' names, I will have forgotten the old students' names. Okay? I hate that. It's frustrating. I'm embarrassed by it. I don't want to admit to them that I don't remember their name. And that's how I'm going to remember retroactive interference. It affects me. Okay? Proactive interference is one that I don't notice it in my own life enough that I can't even think of a real example of it. And so I can only use the example that's in the textbook to help keep that one straight. So proactive interference, early information interferes with later information. You learn English first. Okay? That can make it harder to learn the second language, especially if that second language, something like Russian, for example, that has a very, very different grammar. It's very difficult to learn that second set of information because the first information is already there. That's proactive interference.